it's Will from Will Development. This is my 233rd weekly update. My gut says it's 233rd. It's very confusing because I actually did just record about 14 minutes and realized nobody's going to want to listen to 14 minutes of bullshit. You need to cut that down. But as you know, I do not cut down these videos. These are as raw as it gets. This is me talking, and I do not edit these, mostly out of laziness, but also out of laziness. So I'm going to talk about this week's training. If you watched last week's video, which I'm sure you did because you're subscribed, then you'll have seen that my plan was to test this week and see what I thought of my new accessory movement choices in my squat, bench, or well, not bench, but press and deadlift days. And so far after week one, which is almost impossible to tell, but I am liking it. I am hoping that these new choices I've made are going to improve my weak points in all my different places. So on squat days, I changed from my heavy accessory being a hack squat to a stone front squat. Effectively, the idea is that you bring the stone into your lap once and then you squat it up and then you bring it back down to your lap. Now, what ended up happening in a lot of these is I ended up actually dropping it all the way back down to the floor and just pulling it back up into my legs. Now, or into my lap. This wasn't a problem. It's not really a deadlift. And even if you could consider it a deadlift, but the weight is so light, I ended up using a 130 stone. I'm not proud of it. It's just, it took a lot more out of me than I thought it would. But just using a 130 stone, you know, that on a deadlift, it's not really enough to sort of elicit any kind of negative response in terms of my actual deadlift day, especially since my squat day is Monday and my deadlift day is on Friday. So, I mean, we're talking about the time between those two movements is pretty far apart. So, you know, deadlifting 130 pounds, even 160 pounds in the near future for, you know, let's see, 12 reps this week. It'll be, you know, 16 to 18 reps next week. It's not gonna affect me that much. But I liked it. It's a good thing, and I still have my goblet squats as my high volume accessory movement, and that probably won't change for a while. I really like goblet squats because you can go light, you can go heavy, it doesn't matter. The important thing is it's forcing you to stay upright in this position, and it's not a front squat, which is awesome. And then on my press days, I changed my volume accessory movement. My heavy accessory movement has been bench in the past, and it's going to stay that way. And then my volume movement, I changed from originally with skull crushers, which actually was working just fine. I was thinking about changing that to something like a rope press down extension, something like that. I really like the idea of working that tricep extension movement because I feel like it helps with the lockout. And when I do move towards a contest prep, I'm going to be practicing my push press a lot more. Right now it's all strict press work, and a push press is basically, you know, that's just a little bit of technique refinement for me, honestly. But in that realm, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to switch out my volume for something that's a little more, I don't want to use the word, a little more conditioning. I'll use that word. A little more conditioning. I don't do a lot of conditioning, and I know I need to. So I decided that I would do clean and press with a log for reps. And that is just hell, but it does two things. It gives me a little bit of conditioning, and it really kicks your ass. Just try doing like 10 reps with like, I don't even know what it is. Let's see, my max press is like 170. I did 100 pounds, so, you know, that's not even 80%, you know, that's like 70%, I think, of my one rep for 10. And it's like you want to die by the second or third set. But once you get through it, it's like, woohoo, it's over, you know? And essentially, it's just taking it from the lap, cleaning it, and then pressing it, back to the lap, clean it, press it. So this does a couple things. It's good for conditioning, but it's also good for implement familiarity, which on the log I do need because it's the press has always been one of my worst movements. Overhead press. Bench press, I've always been pretty decent at. Overhead pressing, I've always been pretty shitty at. I'm actually getting pretty good at it now, but it's just because I've focused on it for a whole fucking year, basically. It's been my life has been consumed with becoming a stronger overhead presser because I'm tired of being such a shitty overhead presser. And nothing has come in my way to impede me from doing that. Now, I'm a shitty deadlifter too, but I ended up hurting my back, so it's like, fuck, what now? Well, we work on form and we just grind and grind and grind. We don't give a shit what the number is. It just has to feel heavy, and we'll just go from there. That's the plan on deadlifts. Speaking of deadlifts, I switched up both accessory movements for that. I changed Pendlay rows from, and why I thought of this, 11 weeks ago, I don't know, but it was a just retarded idea. Essentially doing Pendlay rows for reps. It's like, why? This is a heavy barbell movement. You should treat it as such, Doing it for 10 reps, you're going to wear out. Form's going to break down. That's dangerous on this particular movement. So I switched that to the heavy movement on my deadlift day and subbed in my rep work for something I tried out on Saturday. It was essentially low rows on a cable low row with a slight pause. And I call them pause, but the reality is it's just no momentum. I want to make sure I'm not swinging my body to get it. Every rep is here to here, here to here, and everything stays rigid as possible. Constant tension on the muscles of the back and, the bracing muscles, the core, the trunk. Keeping those braced and really rigid, because that's my biggest problem on deadlifts, is staying as rigid as possible. I've gotten a lot better with staying rigid on squats, especially through the entire posterior chain from, traps all the way down to low back. If you watch my most recent squat videos, the ones coming out on Wednesday, a better example. Rep work, let's just ignore that for now. I don't want to talk about it. But sets of 5 I did. I ended up not being able to go that heavy this week because my back was just killing me. And that back video is coming up, I promise. But if you watch that set of 5, every single rep was good, and the back stayed exactly how I wanted it to stay every rep. It stayed nice and strong the entire time, which is exactly what we want. And then I even started planning out my Saturdays now. I have a plan walking in it. Before it was like, I bench and then I'll do whatever. Now it's like, no, you need to bench. You need to bench for 3 sets of 10-ish or 3 sets of 8, something along those lines. Get some good volume work in. And on top of that, you need to pyramid up to a moderate single, somewhere around 90-95%, give or take. And then after that, you have to do pull-ups and you have to do neutral grip pull-ups. And the idea behind that is essentially for every pressing movement in a particular plane with particular hand placement, I want to do the complete opposite motion with the same hand placement. So I'm doing a log, neutral hands, so I'm pushing up, I want to pull up the same way. I'm doing overhead barbell, well, I want to pull the same way. And I do rows for my bench. Well, I also do bench on Saturday, so now I need to add in another couple sets of rows. So that's the reasoning and the logic behind that. But enough about how things went. This is about the future. The future is looking pretty cool. Sunday, I am going to be sitting down with a good friend of mine, David, now this might get confusing because Dave is the guy who runs my gym, is also one of my training partners whenever we actually get to train together, but and obviously one of my best friends. David is a guy I've known for years. I swear I went to middle school with him, but I can't promise it. And he's a really great guy. He was born, and obviously still has, cerebral palsy, and he is also a Paralympic Games athlete, and I believe he's gotten a medal in the Paralympic Games, on top of being one of the most inspirational guys I know. He's also a phenomenal athlete. You would be surprised at how hard this guy can throw a football. Let's just put it that way. You wouldn't look at him and think he could throw that hard, but the man's muscles are strong. He is strong. And we're going to be sitting down on Sunday. I'm probably going to live stream it, maybe. We might live stream on his Instagram or mine. I don't know. I think he has more followers, so we'll probably go to him. And we're going to record a bunch of footage, and as per usual, I will take tons and tons of footage, and I will cut it down to a bunch of different videos, release those over time, and then release the big one, and yada yada yada. You get the idea. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm checking. I actually have 2 more followers than him. Looks like I'll be the one live streaming. No, I don't know. We'll figure something out, even if we decide to do it or not. But I plan on asking him some hopefully hard-hitting questions that will be of use to maybe somebody. The biggest part of this channel is supposed to be, number one, it's for keeping me on track. Knowing I have to stand in front of this camera every Friday, and now that I'm even showing my main lifts, it means I have to be more accountable to both myself and I know other people are watching for sure. I didn't need that motivation. I've always been the kind of guy who's like, I don't give a fuck who's watching. I know what work I need to do, and I'm going to do that work. But now I've got other people watching, at least 4 or 5 people watching every week. That means I am motivated to continue to do it, as well as provide good content, which, is this good content? I don't know. I do this mostly for me, these videos. I do the other videos kind of for other people. I mean, if I didn't want other people to see it, I would just record it and watch it myself and be like, okay, here's where I fucked up on this lift. But I don't do that. Well, I do that anyway, but I put it in a post on Instagram. Because I want other people to see it. I thought it would be cool. Now that I'm like 3 or 4 years in almost, I think it's kind of cool to watch that. I don't know of anybody else who's ever documented literally week by week from nothing weak bitch, essentially, actually from fat weak bitch to 160 something pound weak bitch to 230 something pound relatively strong to injured, and then the comeback again to being hopefully relatively strong. I'd like to think having a 420 pound squat and a 420 pound deadlift put me somewhere in the realm of above average. Maybe on the squat, not so much on the deadlift. That's still terrible movement for me, but I'm working on it. Long story short, I digress too much. It's going to be an awesome time. Subscribe so you don't miss those videos coming out, because it's going to be a very interesting and very enlightening conversation with a great guy whose energy is just palpable and infectious in a good way. So stay tuned for that. And if you don't, then what's your excuse?